Both the letter genre as a whole and the corpus discussed here in particular present their own set of questions which should be addressed when utilizing them. As with any historical source, these include both textual and contextual questions relating to the physical document itself, its author, its addressee or addressees, and its content. It is important to first verify whether the letter under examination is the original. It might have been copied, altered, or translated prior to it being submitted to an archive. Once the level of originality is determined, certain features of the physical letter itself can raise questions important to its analysis. For example, what the letter is written on can help us determine whether the author had access to paper or whether he or she was forced to use something else, like scrap paper. Beyond what it can show us about the availability of writing material, the issue can also hint at a sense of urgency felt by the letter writer, possibly grasping at whatever piece of paper or other material available, driven by an eagerness to relate and connect. Handwriting can also serve as an important indicator in the analysis. In some cases, the handwriting can be so shaky and unclear that we may be able to speculate about the author's physical and mental state, even in the absence of other writing samples by the person. We can see this, for instance, in a letter written by Adele wrote a day before her passing on the 12th of March, 1945. Adele was born in Amsterdam in 1925 and came from an educated background. She was sent to Auschwitz-Birkenau in September 1943 and survived until the liberation of the camp on the 27th of January 1945. In the letter, Adele relates the fate of her sister who had died in the camp as well as other family members, and her hope for reunion with her loved ones, to whom the letter is addressed. Looking at the handwriting, it seems as if a child, rather than a 20-year-old, had written it, struggling to write clearly and in straight lines. Moving to questions relating to authorship, intended readers, and content, these include: when was the letter written? Where? By whom? To whom? What are the topics it presents? What are the implied topics beneath the surface? What is the evidential value of its content? In the following video, Dr. Nida Morvieto will further delve into these and other questions relating to the analysis of letters in general and of this corpus in particular.
When we deal with the first letters, when we talk about first letters that were written immediately after the liberation, we must be very careful when we read them. Of course, we are talking about a treasure, but as every personal documentation, we have to read them on different levels. We have to analyze them on different levels. And of course, in a critical way, we always have to remember the background of the writer, the context in which those letters were written, to whom were they written, by whom, at what stage of the liberation immediately. We have letters that were written the first day of the liberation, letters that were written the first days or weeks, or maybe some months later. So the context and the time period in which the letter was written, it's extremely important to understand why it was written and in which circumstances, of course, because, and then we can understand much better the layers of the letter. Also the bias. What was the intent of the letter will also explain to us why the letter is written to a certain person or not to another. So in this way, we can understand much better the need of the person that wrote the letter and what was he trying to also to do while writing. I think that also we have to be very careful when checking information, especially for the letters that were written, the first letters that were written, because quite often those letters will include information that is not always accurate, historically speaking. And this is very important for us. It doesn't mean that they lied. It just means that they had information that was not necessarily accurate. For example, if I think about letters written by survivors who stated that they were the only survivor of a community. Now, a few months later, they met some more a few more survivors. But the information is not incorrect. In their view, the feeling that they had was that they were the only one who survived from their community, from their city. So to us as historians, we have to get this information also as an indication of their feeling. How did they feel at the very moment of the liberation? So here we have to combine the information, the correct information, historically speaking, and to understand what does it mean to us. Or, for example, I can think about information about what did they do in the camps, which kind of material did they put in the soup for the prisoner to stop the period or menstruation. We know that this was incorrect, but that was the rumor that was spread around the camp, or the rumor about the soap that was made out of corpse. We know historically that this is an incorrect information, but we do have to take into account the existence of these rumors among the prisoners, because these rumors are very important also in the perception of the crime, in the perception of the danger, etc., etc. So here we have to combine the real historical or the correct historical information with the information that is presented in the letter, and do this combination that can help us to read all the layers of the letters. Also, I think that when reading those letters, we always have to keep in mind the letters that were not written, the people, the survivors that did not write, because we only have the letters of those who wrote, but many more did not write, either because they felt that they don't have anybody to write to, or because they were too sick or weak to write, or because they didn't have emotionally the strength to write. So when we read the ones that were written, we always have to keep in mind those who didn't write. And I think that these enable us to gather the wider picture of this very painful chapter of history, which is the liberation, what we call the liberation, which is a very problematic term by itself. And I think that then we have a much wider and more accurate picture.
Finding out the answers to the textual and contextual questions can be challenging. Questions relating to the authorship of the letter serve as a clear example of this. In certain cases, a letter may be signed with only a first name. This, of course, makes it difficult to track down the person who wrote it, which in turn makes it challenging for us to understand who we are dealing with, their personal background, what they went through during the Holocaust, and how to interpret what they wrote. The issue becomes even more problematic when the name of the author is fully absent, either because the letter was left unsigned or because it reached us in a fragmentary or damaged form. Fortunately, in order to try and fill in the textual and contextual gaps the letters often present us with, there are an increasing number of tools that can assist us. When dealing with first letters, these are databases such as the Central Database of Shoah Victims' Names at Yad Vashem, the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum's Holocaust Survivors and Victims Database, the archives on the International Tracing Service at Bad Arolsen, and country-based databases. ISKOR books, memorial books commemorating Jewish communities destroyed during the Holocaust and written by former residents and survivors may also be of assistance.